Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. Dear friends, tonight I thought of speaking about the Girimananda Sutta, which is number 60 in the Book of Tens in the Numerical Discourses of the Buddha. This sutta is a great favorite among Sri Lankan people. It has a framing story of the monk Girimananda, who is cured of his disease while listening to this Dhamma teaching. So it's used as a Parita blessing chant, recited to help people overcome sickness. There's one other sutta that has a similar popular use, and that is there's several different suttas where the recitation of the 7 factors of awakening are used as a kind of a parita or a blessing chant to cause someone to be cured of their sickness. So it happened to Moggallana, was seriously ill, and the Buddha went directly to him himself and recited that teaching, and that brought about his cure. We're not interested in just thinking about this sutta as having some kind of a particular power for healing disease, but we are aware that disease is a very special and unique opportunity to practice and realize, and that if one has the conditions for the arising of wisdom, there's a chance that in the case of serious illness, the one might be able to let go of some of the delusions or clinging that one has been holding on to, and one might be able to realize something that they were not able to realize before. And in that case, they get the much deeper and more significant healing, which is the healing from going around and around in samsara. This sutta is related to sati and or mindfulness, which has been the theme of our winter retreat. I explained to you a number of weeks ago that one of the aspects of mindfulness is that mindfulness includes developing wholesome perceptions such that grief and longing for the world doesn't overwhelm the mind. Developing a perception has 2 meanings, 2 different words in English. One is called, for sanya, the Pali word sanya, one is called apperception, which is where you some object comes in through the senses, and there's a certain evaluation or recognition of what that object or what that phenomena is based on what you've remembered or what you expect to find. But it's definitely an aspect of how we cognize things that are coming in through the senses. So first there's a contact. So far there's not any meaning. Then there's a feeling associated with that. Then there's a perception. So the perception is, it's a person, it's a chair, and so on. And then the other meaning of perception is conception, or conceiving, or taking an idea or a concept that you have learned and reflected about, and then applying that concept to the things that are coming up through the senses. So it depends on which direction, whether you see what's coming from the sense gates into the mind, or what's coming from the mind towards the sense gates, are the two different aspects of perception. And the Buddha, as it's developed in this sutta, part of mindfulness is being skillful, developing skillful ways of perception. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jetastravanatapindika's monastery. Venerable Girimananda was sick, suffering, and gravely ill. Girimananda, the meaning of that word is happy mountain. Giri is a mountain, Ananda is happiness. We don't know very much about him because he only appears in this one sutta. So this may be some kind of an epithet or a nickname for a monk who was happy to live in seclusion in the mountain. So he was ill. Ananda went to the Buddha and said, Girimananda is sick, suffering gravely ill. Sir, please go to Venerable Girimananda out of sympathy. This is something that would be normal for the Buddha to do, especially when there's a person who's capable of making a breakthrough, that the Buddha would materialize before them to give them some Dhamma teaching. But in this case, the Buddha asked Ananda to go and recite to Girimananda these 10 perceptions. And after hearing that, it's possible that the illness will die down on the spot. What 10? Anicca sanya, impermanence. Anatta sanya, not self. Asubha sanya, ugliness. Adinava sanya, danger. Pahana sanya, giving up. Viraga sanya, fading away. Nirodha sanya, cessation. Sabaloke anabhirata sanya, dissatisfaction with the entire world. And then Sabha Sankhari Su Anicca Sanya, which is either the impermanence or wishlessness regarding all the formed, conditioned things in the world. And then Anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing. I have an idea here that actually there's two audiences for this sutta. One is Girimananda, and the other audience for the sutta is Ananda. And I believe that in particular, this sutta has some aspect of the meditation on Nibbana. and the last stages of the perceptions that are to be developed in order to realize Nibbana. So Ananda was not a fully enlightened arahant at this time. He was probably a non-returner, but he was a trainee on the path. He was a noble trainee, but he had not reached the ultimate goal and would not reach it until after the Buddha's parinibbana. But it pleases me to think that out of compassion, the Buddha was nourishing Ananda with the concepts and ideas that Ananda would need in order to realize his full awakening later on. As we go through this sutta, I'm going to particularly be drawing a comparison between the teachings here and the Satipatthana, or the four foundations of mindfulness, and also a comparison between the teachings here and the Anapanasati Sutta, the mindfulness of breathing. In particular, this sutta is probably a guide which gives more explanation about the Anapana teaching. So the perception of impermanence, when a mendicant has gone to a wilderness, to the root of a tree, or to an empty hut, so this is a formal meditation practice, and reflects like this: form, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness are impermanent. They meditate, observing impermanence in the five grasping aggregates. This is the perception of impermanence. And my idea is that these first two reflections, impermanence and not self, are grounding the meditator in directing awareness towards the five aggregates, and then in the next one, grounding the meditator to awareness at the senses and the contact of the senses. So this is the field where we do the work while we're in our meditation on the cushion. The form, the rupa, is not just the elements of materiality like a heart, earth element, air, water element, and so forth, but it also, the form is referring to the body, the material body, this living body, which is made of meat, which has got a lot of different kinds of solid things and liquid things enclosed in a bag of skin, and which is alive and which is endowed with the six senses. So overcoming our worry, grief, and longing in connection to the body is part of the practice by being realistic and seeing the body. And then the next four are aspects of mentality to train the mind to be able to experience Vedana, experience what Vedana does as being a trigger for a reaction, emotional reactions, and experiencing how it's possible to develop the perception of feeling so that a feeling is just a feeling. And a feeling does not need to proliferate into some unskillful emotional reaction. Then a perception, this whole sutta is about perception, so that you can see with accuracy the process of perceptions and how it's possible that sometimes the feeling and perceptions can energize towards making choices, making decisions, deciding to do something, which is where we come into the danger if we were to do the kind of deeds that will perpetually go around as samsara. And then the consciousness is what knows all these things. In the other teachings about the aggregates, it's very common to hold these things in a diluted way and have the idea of that this is me, this myself, this is who I am. And the other teaching about this, like the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, they say, are these permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent. When you see their impermanence, then you know that it's not your refuge. You can't depend on any of those things. And then you can't consider those things to be a self. Something that's impermanent, unsatisfactory, is not proper to consider as a self. And so that's the investigation or the exploration to do with respect to those aggregates. What is the perception of not self? Again, this is a formal meditation practice, sitting meditation in a secluded place. The eye and sights, ear and sounds, nose and smells, tongue and taste, body and touches, mind and ideas are not self. So they meditate, observing not self in the 6 interior and exterior sense fields. So with the first sutta, they've come to realize that the 5 aggregates are not self and become perhaps gained a right view, or at least gained a conceptual understanding that those things are not self. And then having gained that understanding, then the direction for formal meditation is then to zero in on the contact at the sense gates and let that be that detailed domain. It's the gochara, it's the space where the practice is the most fruitful. So you don't necessarily want to be thinking about stories or thinking about problems or thinking about tomorrow, but instead come right down to the senses. And in many different suttas, which are very deep philosophical suttas with profound conceptual teachings, the Buddha opens those suttas by first giving the training about the 6 senses. So, like waking up the awareness of the senses and learning how to direct awareness there to the perception of the senses, that's the fruitful domain where the sitting practice is happening. And now each moment that you experience a sight with the eye, there is also a consciousness present in that exact moment. There's also a feeling present in that exact moment. There's also a perception present in that exact moment. So the whole range of the activities of the mind are able to be present within each moment of sense contact. In particular, it's the most difficult to be aware of the contact of ideas with the mind without being in danger of getting lost in proliferation. Learning how to also be frequently looking at the 5 senses which are happening in the physical body, is very useful. So these two, I say, are the like the ground, giving us the basic space for the meditation practice. Then comes to the asubha sanya, the perception of ugliness, and these are the different parts of the body: head, ears, body, hairs, nails, teeth, skin, and so on. And the idea here is to face up that this is referring to the meat part of your body. So all of these parts of the body have got their job to do in the living body, but they're continuously degrading and falling apart. And seeing that, the process of life is a kind of like a creative destruction is happening in the body, that new cells are being created and cells are dying and being sloughed off the body continuously. The hairs are doing something useful for the body. I guess they're keeping us warm, or they're helping us to express our emotions when they stand up straight, when we're horrified, or they're at the same time they're constantly falling out and dying off. In the style of Upandita, this is a sort of a Abhidhamma style of, it's to take each part of the body and look at its shape, its direction, and its location. So you would think of the hair and the color. So the hair is a long and thin object, which is yellow or brown or gray, whatever it is. And it's located on the head and stuck in a pocket of grease. And so that's just being realistic about it. So this is called the asubha, the ugliness of the body. It's not to make us hate the body, but it's actually to make us overcome the hatred and aversion that we feel towards the degrading qualities of the body. So it's a kind of like conditioning. So we don't want to see that the body is always falling apart, but we're conditioning the mind to approach and to look and to learn how to calmly look at how the body really is, so that it's no longer a cause of distress for us. It is what it is. So this is taking away our distress for the world. The next one is called the drawbacks or the dangers, the adinavasanya. And again, formal practice. And so in this case, you might not be able to directly observe all of these because you might not have all of these conditions, but it's a long list of the different diseases that might happen to the body. Now, of course, Garimananda had some disease. And when Ananda went as a deputy to go and see Girimananda, Ananda had to look at disease. And so these are the diseases that were known about at the time, or some of them. Disease of the eye, inner ear, nose, tongue, body, head, outer ear, disease of the mouth, disease of the teeth, disease of the lips, cough, asthma, catarrh, inflammation, and so on. Afflictions stemming from disorders of bile, phlegm, wind, or their conjunction, afflictions caused by change in the weather, afflictions caused by your actions, by not taking care of yourself. It's by karma, by overexertion, or as the result of past deeds, past deeds is karma. Diseases caused by cold, heat, hunger, thirst, defecation, and urination. So these are the diseases. So then we face up and we stop resisting disease. Disease, just the same as any other unpleasant feeling, can be a tremendous trigger for a lot of distress, a lot of spinning, a lot of mental proliferation can happen because of disease. And but if you have your mind prepared, especially when you come to the last disease of your lifetime, you will not have enough energy to proliferate in your mind about caring and worrying about your disease. All you'll be able to do is just lay in bed and watch your breath and feel the feelings. My friend had the blessing to serve a friend in her last stages, and when she first started the hospice care, she was a little bit like trying to be like the executive director in organizing the schedule of the friends who were going to come and visit and look in on her and sit with her. So she was like busy organizing so that her care would be taken care of. But then within a very short time after that, she wasn't able to do that anymore. And the only thing was she wasn't able to eat because there was a strong physical problems from eating. And so then she had the longing to have some food. And she just begged if she would be allowed. She was a great, deep Dhamma practitioner, but she wanted to have a little bit of food, like a piece of meat or something, that she could just chew on and savor that, feel the flavor, and then she would spit it out so it didn't cause her to be sick. But that only lasted a very short amount of time. And then after that craving, so all the different like cravings about the body with disease can be a blessing. It's a chance. All those different cravings are going to stop. And you don't crave anything more. You're not planning. You've given up about your career. You've given up about any kind of accumulation. And there's nothing to do except breathe and feel the feelings. So, but preparing the mind for disease. So that's the next one. Those two are related to the Kaya Nupassana, the first foundation of mindfulness of the body. Then we have the perception of giving up. This is Pahana. That is related to right effort and the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is a really strong teaching. This is a teaching for somebody who is a trainee, somebody who has woken up to see, they really understand what dukkha is, and they understand how terrible dukkha is, and they strongly motivated for the end of dukkha. And with that strong motivation, then they don't tolerate sensual desire, malice, or cruel thought that has arisen. They don't tolerate any bad, unskillful qualities that have arisen. They give them up, get rid of them, eliminate them, and obliterate them. Already now, in terms of the 4 foundations, we've jumped into the Dhamma Nupassana, the 4th foundation of mindfulness, the mindfulness of the Dhammas, or mindfulness of the teachings, and the mindfulness of the hindrances, and how the hindrances are to be given up. But you wouldn't be able to give up these negative thoughts or these unskillful qualities of the mind unless you had already developed mindful contemplation of the mind, that you were able to recognize the states of mind, practice developing the skill to be able to see to be able to observe what's going on in the mind. And if you practice that observation, and if you ever had any unskillful thoughts or unskillful states in your mind, if you develop the perception of what's unskillful so that you can recognize there's a different kind of energy with those negative toxic thoughts. If you can recognize how the mental landscape changes when those unskillful thoughts come in, then that's what's meant by developing the perception. And once you develop that perception, then you become able to quickly and easily give up those negative states. So that it means also that you're not deluded about those negative states. You don't think that anger and cruelty are good for you. You don't think that cruelty is fun. You don't think that cruelty is enjoyable. You don't think that malice is necessary. You don't think that sensual craving is necessary and good and should be welcomed. Instead, you see the danger at the level of those kinds of thoughts. And seeing the danger at that level, you're able to give it up. Now, the next few have got a parallel with the anapanasati. In the contemplation of the breath, there's 4 reflections observing the physical breath. There's 4 reflections observing the feeling with the breathing. There's 4 reflections noticing the states of mind with breathing. And there's 4 reflections noticing the Dhamma with breathing. And those 4 kinds of Dhammas that are given in the Anapanasati Sutta are exactly the 4 thoughts or the 4 bits of wisdom that are exactly as you are approaching the full awakening. These are the kind of thoughts that are connected and associated to awakening, connected and associated to Nibbana. But they're simply listed in the Anapanasati Sutta. But here in this sutta, they're explained a little bit further. So that's why this sutta is, in a way, helpful in knowing what one might think in connection with those 4 dhammas. So one is called fading away. This is viraga. Raga is passion. So the fading away of passion. Raga also refers to a color. And it can be compared to dropping a drop of dye, colored dye, into a still pond. And then, because of the subtle energy in the pond, the dye spreads out and becomes more and more faint. It spreads out and spreads out and spreads out until it becomes invisible. That's the fading away. So, again, it's a form of practice. And this is the reflection. This is peaceful. This is sublime. That is the stilling of all activities, the letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving, fading away and extinguishing. Etang santang, this is peaceful. Etang panitang, this is sublime. Sabba sankhara samato. So samatha is the stilling. The sankhara, those are the conditioned activities of the mind, the volitional activities of the mind, which create the conditions for going around in rebirth. So all of the activities of the mind that are conditioned by and tied up with the energy about clinging to life, getting more life, wanting more life, wanting to live, wanting to exist, all of the activities of the mind connected to that are come to be still within the formal meditation. And you recognize the peacefulness of that. And then the letting go of all attachments. This is the sabba or upadi. So upadi, attachments, that's related to any kind of identity that could be grasped by the mind and taken up, or it's related to the nourishment, the way a tree that's in the ground is taking up the nourishment from the ground, or taking up the nourishment from the air. So one is no longer taking in any nourishment for rebirth. And the ending of craving is tanha, that's craving, and the kaya of craving, that's not just a soft, gentle fading away and like the sun setting in the west. The kaya is like the sword of Manjushri, the sword of wisdom, cuts it off, kills it, burns the seed. It's utterly destroyed. And that's also associated with the destruction of the asavas, the taints, the taint of craving, the taint of the desire for existence or for rebirth in a heavenly realm. Those are finally cut off completely, killed off. No more, finished, done. And then the fading away, that's the viraga. And then extinguishment is nibbana. So that's how to understand viraga. Then how to understand cessation, that's nirodha. And this is almost exactly the same reflection. This is peaceful, this is sublime, the stilling of all activities, the letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving, cessation, and extinguishment. So here, this is a meditation for the person who's about to be enlightened, who has that moment when the whole house of cards comes down, when it all comes to cessation. This is not just referring to the cessation of things that come and go, like the merry-go-round, like, I was happy for a minute, then the happiness went away and I was sad. And then the sadness went away and I was happy, and the happiness went away and I was sad. And I was on that continuous roller coaster of existence. This is about the complete cessation. So the viraga and nirodha are two of the contemplations in the breath meditation. And the next one is the perception of dissatisfaction with the whole world. It's when a mendicant lives giving up, not grasping onto the attraction and grasping in the world, any kind of mental fixation, any kind of insistence, any kind of underlying tendencies. So if in the previous contemplation one has already become an enlightened arahant, why do you need to do this extra work? Okay, so that a person can be fully enlightened and still be alive, still be in the world, still be encountering people, and still encountering all of the things in the world that previously were the occasions for this grasping, this attraction, these mental fixations, and these underlying tendencies to all become manifested. But if one is living like the arahant, all of those things have been given up. They don't manifest anymore. Or if you believe, like a great teacher like Ajahn Buddhadasa, that it's possible for one to have a glimpse of nibbana, or to experience a moment of nibbana, which is not the experience of the arhat, but it's the experience of the previous stages of awakening, that you've had a brief taste, a vision, that you can see what nibbana is, even though you've not fully realized it for yourself. And in that case, actually, it is still possible for some grasping and attraction to still occur in a person who's got some levels of awakening. And so they're a trainee, they still got their work to do. And they live continuously giving up and not grasping after any of it. And then the next one is the perception of the wishlessness of all conditions. Bhante Sudasu here has tried to make a compromise of some kind. The conventional translation of anicca sanya, the conventional spelling of anicca sanya doesn't have this letter H. It's within all of the formations of the world, seeing anicca without the H, which is impermanence. So seeing the impermanence in all the conditions. But some, based on the explanation, some of the renditions of this sutta give it as the anicca with the H. So ichcha is wishing and wanting. Anicca is not wishing and not wanting. So it's the perception of not wanting any kind of sankhara, any kind of conditioned thing, not wanting anything to do with conditioned things. And the explanation fits that second meaning. It's when a mendicant is horrified, repelled, and disgusted with all conditions. Again, this is a really strong teaching. So this is the called like a nibbida. You're disenchanted, but this is expressed in this really strong way. And so if somebody has got some stage of awakening, if they're a noble disciple, like Ananda, they would not want to pick up the life of somebody who was not enlightened. They would not voluntarily go back. They would not, if it was a monk living the pure life of a monk, they would not want to live an evil lifestyle. It would be to live like an unenlightened person after having had that glimpse and seeing enlightenment. To think of going back to how it was before would be like if you were fell into a festering cesspool, and then somebody rescued you and got you out, and you got cleaned up, and they said, "Okay, would you like to jump into the cesspool again?" He says, "No, you wouldn't." And this is why for somebody who's a stream winner or somebody who's a noble, it is impossible for them to do most kinds of evil deeds, because to do so would be to jump into a cesspool, and they won't do it. Or if they wanted to take up hatred or something like that, if they wanted to take up a grudge, they won't, because there would be it would be like jumping in a cesspool. So then we come to the mindfulness of breathing. And I'm not going to go into this because I think maybe next week we can do the Anapanasati Sutta. But it's a form of meditation practice. They know the quality of the breaths. They learn how to calm the breath. They experience the feelings of bliss and they calm those blissful feelings. They calm the mental process, calm the mind. They experience the mind. They know how to gladden the mind. They know how to lift up the mind, and they also know how to calm the mind. Okay. And then the last four, which relate to what's been explained earlier in this sutta. They breathe observing impermanence. They breathe observing the fading away. They breathe observing cessation. And they breathe observing letting go. So Ananda recites these perceptions to Kriyamananda, and his illness does indeed die down on the spot. So now is the time for questions. Greetings, Janaki, Visha Ryan, Gregory Manal, Samasiha, Elaine, Rick, Chintana Bhumika, Louise. I see one question from Ryan. Regarding death's last thought moment, did the Buddha expound on that concept, or is that maybe from Abhidhamma? What did the Buddha say regarding the last thought? The teaching that the last thought determines the type of rebirth is definitely commentarial, and that even is going against the Buddha's teachings, because the Buddha taught, your last thought is kind of like a karma, isn't it? And that the workings of karma and what determines a rebirth is very complicated, because there's a combination of different kinds of supporting conditions that can come into play that determines what manifests at the very next immediate moment, or what might manifest later on. And he counseled that trying to figure that out is beyond the scope of people who are not Buddhas, and they would just drive themselves insane trying to figure that out. But the one thing the Buddha said to know about karma is that a wholesome karma doesn't produce an unpleasant result, and unwholesome karma does not produce a pleasant result. So, therefore, if you one should, if you're still in the world of doing the kind of karma which is going to be leading to rebirth, you should try to make them wholesome, so that they will lead to pleasant results. And you should try to do pleasant karmas so that the mind can be calm to come to the state of wisdom that allows one to go beyond karma. What is the role of mindfulness during death's last moment? It is very a blessing to be mindful during the last moment of life, and to mindfully have a perception of the last breath ending in with the termination of that breath is the termination of life, and that the in the Tativibhanga Sutta it's given that for the Arahant, that at that moment the mind has no inclination either towards existence or towards non-existence. So the mind is not having an inclination or grasping or reaching, but is simply able to notice the last breath. Now, you might be in a coma when the last breath happens, or you might lose the mental control during your final illness, and it's for that reason that, in my opinion, it's quite urgent to really work on developing good mental habits. Make mindfulness as habitual, as powerful, and as strong as you can, so that then that would, even after you're maybe no longer able to control your mind with your willpower, but nevertheless, because of the habit that you've developed, or the underlying tendencies that have died down to nothing or died down to almost nothing, that then that mindful state would still obtain, even if you're in a coma and not able to express yourself, not able to speak, not able to move the body, not able to do any of those things. But then it's it's possible that if a person has those habits, that they can be mindful. We know of, I think I've heard stories of Mahamoggallana, the Cambodian bhikkhu. Gosananda, Bhikkhu Gosananda, during his last months of life, because of the brain illness, he was confused about practical things. So he would be confused about whether it was time for lunch or wanting to go to a certain temple. And after he'd go there, and then he'd come back, and then he'd want to go there again, because he forgot that he was just there. So he lost his short-term memory. But despite losing his short-term memory, he didn't lose his mindfulness. See, so it's possible that even if the last illness that we have affects the brain, it's possible, if we develop and cultivate mindfulness while we still have the power to do so, that could still be a factor for us. Manala Singh as a householder, it's particularly difficult to practice seeing all conditioned things as unattractive. Yeah, how to deal with this particular urgency. Yeah. So, in particular, there are conditioned things that are aspects of nature, like the sunset. And the Buddha acknowledged the beauty of nature. He acknowledged looking over the paddy fields from a high vantage point and seeing the pattern of the paddy fields, how beautiful it was. But the particular kind of conditioned thing is the conditionality which is about the cycle of rebirth. It's being stuck on the merry-go-round, going around and around in rebirth. So the kind of things that you do because of that are not you personally, but humans and animals and living beings want to protect their life. And it's that craving for life. That's the one that you should examine very carefully and see if you could come to being disenchanted with that. Once you let go of that craving, then you actually go on doing the same things you were doing. So you're still taking care of your family, still doing your job, still washing your body, still fixing lunch, still doing those activities of life. But you're not, and those activities of life are not, it's not like being in a cesspool to do the normal activities of life. The thing that's like a cesspool is to have the thought in mind, is to have the conditioning of mind, which is grasping after protecting, keeping, holding, and getting more life. So that's the part that I think is possible to develop urgency for. So I think this may be enough for tonight. So thank you all for your patient listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.